Hello, welcome to Comprehension Points Video Snark. I'm continuing my sarcastic book review of The Mister by E.L. James. Not the first video, go check out the others, links are posted below. Chapter 13. They walk down the beach until they reach what Max explains is an abandoned tin mine. He tells her that he grew up in the area, although the house is a recent addition from Kit. He goes on to explain that his brother died recently, that his father died when he was 16, that his sister is a doctor in London, while his mother lives in New York. Elisa senses that Max's parents are a touchy subject for him. Elisa changes the subject and tells him that there are mines near where she lives in Albania, but she doesn't know the English word for what they mined. Max says that they'll have to invest in an Albanian English dictionary if that's the case. They walk to the village of Trevethick, which should be noted as Max's surname. I don't think that I've mentioned it up until now, but it also wasn't plot relevant. I'll accept a local lord having the village named after him as a plot relevant name. In the village, Elisa is excited to see that one of the shops is the same two-headed eagle as Max's tattoo. Just outside, they meet the local vicar, who gently guilts Max into not attending church services in that quaint way that only pastors can do. They go into the pub where the bartender gets their drink orders before saying that somebody named Megan will be with them in a moment. However, Max is upset to learn that Megan is somebody that he once had a physical relationship with, and he chides himself over some solid advice of not being romantically entangled with the locals. At a table, Max asks Elisa about her religious beliefs since the vicar brought it up. She says that when Albania was communist, they banned religion. Her grandmother used to pray in secret, and it is her grandmother's golden cross that Elisa wears. However, after the fall of communism, the country became rather secular. She says that there's a lot of Muslims in Albania now. Max tells her that his official religion is following the Church of England, but he's not really religious. As he tells her this, he thinks that Kit often made weekly appearances at the local church and curses as he thinks that he's going to have to do this as well. Max is surprised when Elisa tells him that she's never been to the city before. However, they're interrupted by Megan coming to take their orders. She's bitter and angry, and Max can't help but think that their relationship had happened 7 years ago one summer. In order to distract them from Megan, Max instead asks Elisa about her own family. No siblings, but she seems equally closed off about disguising her parents as Max is about his own. She describes Albania to him when he asks and says that the landscape of Cornwall reminds her a lot of her hometown. And then she says that she had been in school, but the university shut down. She sometimes would teach at the local primary school, and sometimes she'd play the piano. She asks about Max's work, but he kind of hedges around the topic without fully answering it. After they finish this meal, fish pie if anybody wants to know, the book would not stop talking about it. They go next to a local shop. There, Max buys a nightlight for Lisa, and then he buys anti-baby fun devices on the hopes that he'll get lucky. And once again, going back to the recurring theme that any efforts of the author to tell us that Max isn't going to touch Elisa because of her trauma or anything is instantly nullified by the simple fact that he won't stop being full of hope and wanting for it to happen. They go back to the beach where Elisa is again overjoyed with the prospect of it. As she looks back at Max, she randomly decides that she loves him. And, okay, so time out here for a second. I get that she's under a lot of emotional stress because of being trafficked, escaping, living in poverty, being hunted down by Dante. But I feel like Elisa isn't exactly in a position for her to be saying stuff like, I love Maxim, and it being romantically accurate. Does she love him because he's a good romantic partner? Or does she love him simply because he's helping her out of a toxic situation and she's emotionally confused and vulnerable as a result? Anyway, Elisa falls in the water and Max thinks that she might be a little tipsy from the beer she had with their lunch. They go back to the house where he tells her to change into dry clothes. He then takes a moment to arrange for dinner from somebody and then calls the guy who had been hired to watch over the other lady. And the guy is, creepy beyond words. He questions why Max had run off with his maid and even asks if Max has, and I quote, sealed the deal with her. Ew. He then messages Caroline, which I feel is a mistake. She says that she'll join him at the estate, but he says that he's not at the big house. She mentions that stupid word again, step-sow, and we still don't have context for that. After doing that, Max tries to find Elisa. However, he has a brief moment of panic when he can't find her in the usual rooms, but he finds her in the laundry room. She's not wearing pants and is running the dryer. As she explains, she doesn't have any other clothes. Max promises to buy her some new things tomorrow, but in the meantime she can borrow something of his. He gets turned on looking at her bare legs. She changes into some old clothes from Michael, which she had those that she could have put on. Why was she sitting in the laundry room with no pants on? Elisa tells Max to stop staring at me like you want me and goes on to say that she doesn't know what to do about stuff like that. It's more about her status as a virgin rather than because she's afraid and traumatized. The only singular thing that stops Max from taking her is because she still seems a little tipsy from their lunch. And as he thinks about it, he realizes that he's the only person Elisa has right now. If I her, I'll be taking advantage. Simple. So I can't. Which is a new variation of the old theme of you don't get brownie points for constantly telling yourself to stop when you also have to remind yourself that she's been through too much trauma. Elisa mopes over the fact that Max won't have happy fun times with her and pounds out her frustration on the piano. When she finishes the song, Max apologizes for having upset her again and asks that she play something else. She plays a song that he'd written after he met her, and he thinks that she's somehow able to do it better than he ever could. But the song randomly reminds Max of how much he'd loved Kit, but he never actually told his brother, I love you. And Elisa thinks that playing the song upset Max, but he explains that not even a month earlier they'd buried his brother there. We end the chapter on this note. I didn't cry at the hospital. I didn't cry at the funeral. I haven't cried since my father died when I was 16 years old. Yet here, now, with her I let go, and I sob in her arms. Nothing quite like some old-fashioned toxic masculinity that men shouldn't cry to round out our chapter. Chapter 14. Elisa briefly panics as she holds the sobbing Max, which I think that anybody would do if a man that they barely know has an emotional breakdown like that. She kisses him after a while and he responds in kind. They make out for a while and then he asks if she's okay. He asks if she's ever been kissed, but she says only by him. He grinds her against his Max Jr. and asks if she's okay after a moment. They continue to make out and grind against one another for a while. Eventually Max says that he wants to make love to her. Direct quote from the book, I would have wrapped it in a better euphemism. Elisa agrees to this, so he carries her upstairs. There he takes off her clothes and gets her off with his fingers. They pause after that, and he starts kissing her all over, and every 5 seconds reminding us of Elisa's downstairs moisture level, as if it would have somehow stopped since the last time Max checked. And this is probably TMI for a lot of you, but since I do have these parts and I have experienced low moisture levels at times, trust me when I say that the guy will know when moisture levels are low as opposed to when they're not. It's not something that's just an on-off switch like James seems to think that it is. It's not male parts that are either up or down. The moisture comes and it usually sticks around for a while. Max puts on an anti-baby device and Max Jr. goes spelunking in her watery cave. And that is a sentence that I had to think up, write, and then say, what is my life even? And I'm not going to say that he's a two-pump Trump, but the chapter ends pretty quickly after that, which I think is really telling. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because sometimes I drop random videos on other days too. You can like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you don't miss a single video. While you're waiting for the next video, you can go check out all my other videos. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've already read all of my main Snarks and you can find even more Snarks on my Patreon, you can access it for $1 a month, plus you get early access to my main Tumblr Snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, you either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snarks so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $3 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, $3 for every 5,000 words. You can contact me on Tumblr if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have 19 erotic short stories, 1 short story collection, and 1 full-length novel. I also sometimes run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you know when I might be offering more things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys!